There's a statement that a sitting defense minister has never made publicly in modern history about a leader who hasn't even been named yet. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz posted it on X on Wednesday morning, and it is not rhetoric. It is a targeting order. Any leader selected by the Iranian terror regime to continue leading the plan for Israel's destruction, threatening the United States, the free world, and countries in the region, will be a certain target for assassination, no matter his name, no matter where he hides, no matter where he hides. Not, we will respond to aggression, not, we are watching closely. A specific, public, preemptive declaration that whoever Iran names as its next supreme leader is already scheduled to die. Welcome to the Strategic Warfare Report. If you're new here, this channel has been tracking this conflict week by week, source by source, before anyone else was connecting the dots. Subscribe right now because what we're about to break down in the next few minutes is the story that determines whether this war ends or whether it just found a new reason to never stop. Let's go. Here's what you need to understand before anything else. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was killed on February 28, 2026, in the opening wave of Operation Epic Fury, joint U.S. and Israeli strikes on Tehran. He was 86. He had ruled with absolute authority since 1989, and he never publicly named a successor. That single fact, no declared heir, is the operational lever that Israel is now using to make the succession process itself a battlefield, because naming the next supreme leader of Iran is not a private clerical matter anymore. It is the most dangerous act any Iranian official can perform right now, and the man who is reportedly being chosen understands that better than anyone. His name is Mojtaba Khamenei. He is 55 years old. He is the second son of the man who just died in a U.S. Israeli airstrike. He is a mid-ranking cleric who has never held a formal government position. And according to Iran International, citing informed sources, he has already been selected by the Assembly of Experts as Iran's next supreme leader, under direct pressure from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The selection reportedly happened while Israel was actively bombing the building where the vote was supposed to take place. Stay with me, because the sequence of events over the last 72 hours is the most operationally precise attempt to assassinate a government before it forms that has ever been conducted in modern warfare. And it has not succeeded yet. Let's rebuild exactly what happened, hour by hour, using confirmed reports from Al Jazeera, Reuters, Iran International, Fox News, the Irish Times, and CNN. When Khamenei was killed on Saturday, Iran's constitution activated automatically. Article 111 mandated the formation of a three-person interim leadership council to govern until a new supreme leader is formally named. That council consists of three people: President Masoud Pezeshkian, moderate, elected last year; Chief Justice Gholam Hossein Mohseni AJ, hardliner, former intelligence minister who promised no leniency against protesters; and Ayatollah Alireza Arafi, 67, senior cleric, deputy chairman of the Assembly of Experts, head of Iran's seminary system. These three men have been governing Iran through continuous bombardment since Saturday. They have been meeting, not in government buildings, not in the parliament, not in any official structure that appears on a targeting map. According to social media reports cited by Iran International, their first confirmed meeting took place inside a ward at Tehran's Arman Hospital. The most powerful governing body in the Islamic Republic was conducting war cabinet meetings in a hospital. That is what Israel's opening strike achieved. Not the collapse of the regime, the relocation of it. Now here's where it gets more dangerous. The body responsible for selecting the new supreme leader, Iran's Assembly of Experts, is an 88-member council of senior Shia clerics elected by the Iranian public every 8 years. Under normal conditions, they convene, deliberate in secrecy, and select the new leader by simple majority. This has only happened once in the Islamic Republic's history. In 1989, when Khomeini died, the transition took less than 1 day. These are not normal conditions. Israel knew the assembly would have to meet, and Israel decided to strike the meeting before Iran could announce anything. On Tuesday, 3 days after Khamenei's killing, Israeli forces struck the Assembly of Experts building in Qom, one of the holiest cities in Shia Islam. An Israeli defense official confirmed to Axios the intent with one sentence: "We wanted to prevent them from picking a new supreme leader, not a military target, not a weapons facility, not a missile launcher, a building full of clerics trying to elect a leader according to their own constitution." The official told Axios the strike occurred while votes were being counted. Fox News reported, citing a senior Israeli official, that multiple Iranian officials responsible for counting votes were killed. But here is the detail that changes everything. According to Fars news agency, which is affiliated with Iran's own Revolutionary Guard, the building was empty when the strike hit. The Assembly of Experts had already moved to virtual meetings. Israel bombed a room that Iran had already vacated. Not because Iran got lucky, because Iran anticipated the strike. Senior clerics are now deliberating through encrypted virtual sessions, 2 documented by the Irish Times, 1 in the morning and 1 in the evening on Tuesday alone. The vote that Israel tried to stop may have already happened, and the name that Iran's clerics apparently chose, the name they were reportedly afraid to announce publicly because announcing it would immediately make him a target, is Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the man who was just killed in a U.S. Israeli airstrike. Let that settle for one moment, because the implications run in every direction. Iran International reports that Mojtaba's selection was made under direct pressure from the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. That is the most powerful military and intelligence institution in Iran. It survived the killing of its previous commander. It survived the killing of 49 senior officials in the opening hours of Operation Epic Fury. It is still firing missiles at American bases, still launching drones at Gulf cities, still operating its command structure from dispersed, hardened underground facilities that China and Russia spent 8 months helping to build. And the IRGC has decided that the next supreme leader of Iran should be the son of the last one. Think about what that decision tells you about where Iran's power actually sits right now. The clerics, the constitutional process, the 88-member assembly, they deliberate, they vote, they follow procedure. But when the IRGC pushes, the result is already known before the vote is counted. Mojtaba Khamenei didn't win an election. He was installed by the institution with the guns, the missiles, and the tunnel network. Now let's talk about who Mojtaba actually is, because what the IRGC chose is not a compromise candidate. It is not a moderate. It is not a reformist. He is 55 years old. According to CNN, he is known to wield significant influence behind the scenes with strong ties to both the IRGC and the BSJ, the paramilitary force that crushes internal dissent. The United States sanctioned him in 2019, not because he held an official title, but because Washington concluded he effectively represented his father's authority without the accountability of a named position. He has publicly supported the suppression of protesters inside Iran. He has publicly backed an assertive foreign policy against what the regime calls external enemies. And according to a politician close to him, Abdulreza Davari, speaking to the New York Times before the war, Mojtaba could emerge as a figure in the style of Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. He is extremely progressive and will move to sideline the hardliners, Davari said. This is the contradiction at the heart of Iran's succession crisis. The IRGC, the hardest of hardliners, chose a man whose own associates describe him as potentially progressive. Either the IRGC miscalculated what they were getting, or the description is deliberate misdirection designed to make the outside world underestimate what comes next. Vali Nasser, one of the most respected scholars of Iran and Shia Islam at Johns Hopkins University, told the Irish Times that Mojtaba's selection would be a surprising choice, and a potentially telling one. Not surprising because he is unqualified. Surprising because it locks in the IRGC's institutional dominance over the clerical establishment at the exact moment when the clerical establishment needs to demonstrate it can govern. Here's the problem Iran has not solved yet. Mojtaba has not been formally announced. Iranian state media has not confirmed his selection as of this broadcast. And the reason, confirmed by sources speaking to the Irish Times on condition of anonymity, is not procedural. The clerics discussing his announcement are afraid that confirming his name will immediately expose him as a target for assassination by Israel and the United States. Read that again. Iran's incoming supreme leader cannot be named publicly because naming him is functionally equivalent to painting a targeting reticle on him. That is not a political problem. That is a military problem. It is the problem of an institution trying to function constitutionally inside a war that is targeting the constitutional process itself. And Israel's defense minister made it explicit on Wednesday morning. No matter his name, no matter where he hides. The phrase where he hides is doing an enormous amount of work in that sentence. It tells you that Israel already knows Mojtaba exists. It tells you that Israel expects him to operate from concealment, not from a visible official position. And it tells you that Israel has already concluded that finding and killing him is operationally viable, regardless of how deeply he goes underground. Now let's look at Trump's calculation, because Washington's position on the succession is different from Israel's. And that difference is a fracture line. On Tuesday, during an Oval Office appearance, Trump was asked about the worst-case scenario for Iran following Khamenei's death. His answer was specific. I guess the worst case would be we do this and somebody takes over who's as bad as the previous person. Right? That could happen. We don't want that to happen. Later the same day, Trump told reporters something even more direct. Pretty soon, we're not going to know anybody. Referring to the rate at which potential Iranian leaders were being eliminated, that is the United States president mid-operation, acknowledging that the killing campaign is running out of known targets. It is also the clearest possible signal that Washington's end goal is not just regime decapitation, it is regime replacement with someone acceptable to American priorities. Mojtaba Khamenei, under IRGC pressure, selected as a hardliner's choice, sanctioned by the United States since 2019, is not that person. Which means if Mojtaba is formally confirmed as supreme leader, the operational logic of continued American strikes does not diminish. It intensifies, because the entire theory of Operation Epic Fury was that removing the old leadership would create a vacuum that Iranian moderates or pro-Western forces could fill. The IRGC just answered that theory by nominating the son of the man who was just killed. Not a reformist, not a technocrat, not an American palatable moderate, the son. Let's now go to the funeral, because it is its own crisis. Ayatollah Ahmad Khatami, a senior cleric who sits on both the Guardian Council and the Assembly of Experts, told Iranian state television on Wednesday that Iran is close to a conclusion on the successor. But he also said this: the situation in the country is a war situation. The farewell ceremony for Khamenei, originally scheduled, has been postponed. According to Iran's Tasnim news agency, the official reason is logistical. Too many people from too many provinces have requested to attend. The prayer hall cannot accommodate the scale of mourning. That is the official explanation. The operational reality, according to every security analyst tracking this conflict, is different. The expected crowd is enormous. When Ayatollah Khamenei was buried in 1989, 10 million people attended his funeral. 10 million people in one location. 10 million people who would include, somewhere in that crowd, the senior clerics and officials who constitute the surviving leadership of the Islamic Republic. Israel has already struck the building where votes were being counted. Israel has already threatened to kill whoever is named as successor, and Iran is deciding whether to hold a public farewell ceremony that could draw the largest single gathering of Iranian leadership in decades. The postponement is not logistical. It is the regime calculating whether it can protect a funeral. Here is what that calculus looks like from the outside. The Assembly of Experts is meeting virtually, not physically, because physical meetings are assassination targets. The Interim Leadership Council is meeting in a hospital. The farewell ceremony is postponed because a crowd of 10 million is also a targeting opportunity. And Mojtaba Khamenei, reportedly selected, reportedly confirmed internally, reportedly chosen under IRGC pressure, has not been publicly named because being named means being hunted. This is the operating reality of Iran's government on the morning of March 4th, 2026, day 4 of Operation Epic Fury, a constitutional process happening in total secrecy, a confirmed selection that cannot be announced, a funeral that cannot be held, a government conducting its business from underground locations, virtual meetings in hospital rooms, while simultaneously launching missiles at 27 American bases across 6 countries. Now let's address the question that the IRGC's choice of Mojtaba actually answers. There was a theory, embedded in Operation Epic Fury's planning document reported by Israeli media, that Iran's security forces would stand down after their leadership was killed. The Syrian model, the Assad parallel, decapitate the regime and the structure collapses. The IRGC just gave its answer to that theory. Within 24 hours of Khamenei's death, they appointed a new commander. Within 48 hours, they were lobbying the Assembly of Experts for a specific succession outcome. Within 72 hours, according to Iran International, they had delivered that outcome. An institution does not do that if it is standing down. An institution does not organize, pressure, and deliver a succession vote under active bombardment if it is disintegrating. The IRGC did not collapse, it organized. And it selected a supreme leader who spent his entire adult life cultivating ties with the IRGC, not with reformists, not with moderates, not with the Iranian diaspora that Washington hoped would fill the vacuum. The son who spent decades as a shadow figure inside his father's inner circle. The son who was sanctioned by the United States 7 years ago for wielding power without accountability. The son who is now reportedly the 3rd supreme leader of the Islamic Republic, governing, if the reports are confirmed, from an undisclosed location, while Israeli defense minister has already declared him a dead man. Let's talk about what the succession crisis is doing to Iran's war capacity, because this is not just about politics. According to Iran International, reports from inside Iran indicate that parts of the military chain of command have been disrupted. The transmission of orders and operational coordination is facing difficulties. Some commanders and lower-ranking personnel have reportedly refrained from reporting to their bases, out of fear that command facilities are being targeted. That sounds like disintegration. It is not. Here is why. An institution that disperses under bombardment to avoid targeting is not collapsing. It is adapting. The IRGC has spent years building a dispersed, tunnel-protected, AI-assisted targeting infrastructure specifically because it anticipated decapitation strikes. The commanders who are not at their bases are not deserting. They are operating from the hardened secondary locations that the primary base existence was designed to protect them from needing. The missiles are still launching, 6 waves against 27 American bases. The Fateh 2 hypersonic has entered combat. The Strait of Hormuz remains conditionally closed. That is not the output of a command structure that has collapsed. That is the output of a command structure that decentralized exactly as planned. Now let's look at the 5 candidates who were considered alongside Mojtaba, because understanding who Iran chose tells you exactly what the IRGC decided Iran needs right now. Ali Larijani, Iran's top national security official, former Majlis Speaker, currently serving as acting national security chief. He is secular enough to be functional, hardline enough to be IRGC acceptable. But he is not a senior cleric, which creates constitutional complications. He has been managing Iran's defense decision-making through this crisis, and may be too valuable in his current operational role to be elevated. Sadek Amoli Larijani, Ali's brother, former judiciary chief, current chairman of the Expediency Council, considered capable of preserving the regime under extreme pressure, widely respected within the establishment, a consensus candidate, not a revolutionary choice. Alireza Arafi, already on the interim council, already functioning as a provisional authority. His role on the Guardian Council means he could theoretically vet his own candidacy. Strong institutional ties. Met Pope Francis at the Vatican in 2022, but described by analysts as a consensus placeholder, not a transformational leader. Mohseni Ejai, already on the interim council as head of the judiciary. Hardliner with a history of cracking down on protesters. Former intelligence minister. Known for the phrase, no leniency, during the January 2026 protests. An IRGC-adjacent figure, but not IRGC's preferred choice for supreme leader. Hassan Khamenei, grandson of the Islamic Republic's founder, reformist associated. Barred from running for the Assembly of Experts in 2016, almost certainly not acceptable to the IRGC. His name surfaces because of his bloodline, not because of his institutional power. The IRGC looked at every one of these names and chose Mojtaba, not the consensus candidate, not the technocrat, not the reformist, not the pragmatist, the son. Why? Because in a moment of existential crisis, the IRGC chose continuity of ideology over continuity of function. They chose a symbol over a manager, and a symbol communicates something to the Iranian population and to the outside world that no technocrat can communicate. The Islamic Republic does not negotiate its own existence. It reproduces it. The son of the man you killed will lead the country you tried to destroy. That message is not addressed to Washington or to Jerusalem. It is addressed to the Iranian people. And it is time to land on the same day that 10 million Iranians are preparing to bid farewell to the father. Now let's address the strategic trap this creates. Israel's defense minister has publicly declared that whoever is named successor will be targeted for assassination. Trump has indicated that an Iranian leader who continues unfriendly policies is the worst-case scenario, and Iran has reportedly selected a man who represents maximum ideological continuity with everything the operation was designed to end. Both sides are now locked. If Mojtaba is publicly confirmed, Israel has already committed to treating his announcement as a targeting event. The defense minister's statement cannot be walked back without catastrophic credibility loss. If Iran refuses to announce Mojtaba, keeps him in constitutional limbo, operating as an unconfirmed secret, then Iran governs without a supreme leader for the duration of the war. Neither option is clean, but one of them preserves Iran's operational capacity while denying Israel a confirmed target, and the other turns the announcement itself into a kinetic event. The clerics who spoke to the Irish Times said they were afraid to announce Mojtaba because the announcement would expose him as a target. That fear is the most strategically significant sentence in any reporting from the last 48 hours. It means Iran has identified the announcement as the moment of maximum vulnerability, and it means Iran is choosing to govern in secrecy rather than hand Israel the targeting moment it is waiting for. Israel struck an empty building. Iran's government met in a hospital. The funeral has been postponed. The successor has not been named publicly. And the Israeli defense minister has already signed the death warrant for whoever is named. That is the situation on March 4th, 2026. This is not a regime that has collapsed under the weight of American and Israeli strikes. This is a regime that has gone underground, adapted its constitutional process to wartime operations, chosen its next leader under fire, and refused to make the announcement that its enemies are waiting to use as a targeting solution. The question is not whether Iran survives the succession crisis. The question is whether Israel can maintain the operational tempo required to find and strike a man who has spent his entire life operating in the shadows. A man described by his own associates as someone who cultivated influence without visibility. A man who watched his father run the Islamic Republic for 37 years. A man who understands that visibility is the first step toward becoming a traitor. The Israeli defense minister said, no matter where he hides, but Mojtaba Khamenei has spent 55 years learning that lesson from his father, and his father survived 3.5 decades of assassination planning before a joint U.S.-Israeli strike finally found him in his own compound on a Saturday morning. The IRGC selected Mojtaba because they believe he can do what his father did, govern from concealment, accumulate power without official title, build institutional relationships that persist even when the man at the top changes. And wait, the funeral is coming. The announcement is coming. The moment when Iran will have to choose between public legitimacy and operational security is coming. What happens in that moment will tell you more about whether this war ends in weeks or lasts for a generation than any missile trajectory, any CENTCOM press release, or any Truth Social post. Because the regime that Operation Epic Fury was designed to collapse has just chosen its next leader. He has not been named publicly. He is reportedly already governing from an undisclosed location. He is sanctioned by the United States, desired by the IRGC, feared by Iran's clerics as a target, and declared a dead man by Israel's defense minister. All of that is true simultaneously, and the war continues. Share this video right now to everyone tracking this conflict. Israel has publicly declared Iran's next supreme leader a target before his name was even announced. Mojtaba Khamenei, the son, has reportedly been selected under IRGC pressure and is governing from an undisclosed location. The Assembly of Experts held virtual meetings because their building in Qom was bombed while votes were being counted. Iran's farewell ceremony for Khamenei has been postponed because a crowd of 10 million people is also an assassination opportunity. And the IRGC, the institution that survived 49 senior leaders killed in the opening hours of Operation Epic Fury, chose not a reformist, not a technocrat, not a diplomat. They chose the son. That choice is the IRGC's answer to everything Operation Epic Fury was designed to produce. And Strategic Warfare Report will be tracking every development as it unfolds. Subscribe now. Because what happens in the next 48 hours will not look like anything any Western analyst has modeled. And you will not want to miss it. This video is based on publicly available reports and analysis. Developments may change as new information emerges.